Elizabeth, or, God, I love explaining the Silver Eyes. So the fourth Charlie bot that's also Circus Baby, that's also possessed by Elizabeth, that also has the memories of Charlotte Emily.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. I'm your host of the Toast, Rye Toast, here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, like we always do. A bit of housekeeping, very minor housekeeping, but if you follow the streams over on twitch.tv/RyeToastYT, which I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday at 9 p.m. EST every single week, first of all, you should be. But if you're not yet, now's a bad week to join, because I'm actually not going to be streaming Wednesday, Friday, or Saturday this week. We will not be in the state. There's very good reasons why, but I cannot share them as of yet. Regardless, I just wanted to say that here, and I'll say it on the Discord and Twitter as well, but again, there will not be streams for the rest of this week, but I will see you on Monday on Twitch for those streams. That bit of housekeeping aside, let's get into our topic today. I wasn't really sure if I was going to do a topic or more questions, but then we recently got an interview with Freddy Carter. Now, for those who don't know who Freddy Carter is, he's one of the actors in the upcoming FNAF 2 movie, and he's that, before we knew what he was, aforementioned weirdo who really likes FNAF. Like, we didn't really know what his deal was, but there was a test showing that the footage kind of is out there now. Not test showing, like a sneak preview that the footage is out there, where it's this guy basically giving a tour of the FNAF 2 location, and he's being really weird about it the whole time. He's like, yeah, this place will get to you, but, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy are all here, and it's pretty cool, man. Like, he's just like a weird, skeevy guy, and we had no answers for him. Was this a flashback and that's William? Did William have a copycat? Like, what is this guy? Well, we got an interview. I'm just going to read this excerpt from the article. British actor Freddy Carter also joins the ensemble as Michael, a young man with a peculiar interest in the Freddy Fazbear legend. My first day on set was unforgettable, Carter said. I showed up in full costume, ready to go, and it was all completely new to me. Most of the cast and crew had worked on the first film, so what felt normal to them was amazing to me. Everyone else was walking around with these animatronics, treating it like the most ordinary thing in the world, while I was standing there completely awestruck as one of them casually took off its head to take a sip of water. I always forget, like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I guess you would, like, get used to working with these massive animatronics and costumes. Meanwhile, like, he's like, I'm sorry, we're working with these? Because it is, it's refreshing how practical a lot of the effects in the movie are. Anyway, so you're telling me that a skeevy character who knows a lot about Freddy Fazbear Pizza, named Michael, is leading people into a restaurant after hours? So I was right, and Michael Afton was an accomplice for a while, huh? Right? Like, so this is one of those things where it's like, are the movie and the game the same story? No, clearly not. They're clearly different stories. This is, the Silver Eyes all over again. But if they are going in this direction, where Michael Afton is maybe not an accomplice for William, but at least working for him in some capacity, this would be great parallel evidence for one of my theories. I've been going on for a while that I think Michael Afton was a unwilling helper to William Afton up until Sister Location. The logic being that after the death of the crying child, Michael is put into the FNAF 4 Nightmare experiment chambers, and he's just kept there in perpetuity. But when William needs somebody to do some dirty work for him, he pulls him out, abuses him, and he's like, hey, I can save you from these nightmares. You just have to go do this one thing for me. And then Michael goes to do it, he fails at it, and then William throws him back down there. He does this for Night 6 of FNAF 2, he does this for all of FNAF 1, but after FNAF 1, he's like, alright, that still didn't work, you wait here, here's instructions if I don't get it back, I'm gonna get the animatronics myself, and then he dies. And then Sister Location happens, and Michael Afton learns that William Afton was the one who was torturing him all this time, and he vows to stop him. That's been my logic for a while. I've got a couple videos on that, if you want like a more in-depth reasoning and argumentation for it. But that's not really why we're here. Why we're here is because if Michael Afton was for some reason working for William, this is great parallel evidence for it. The idea that in the movie, Michael Afton is working for William. Now, it's interesting to think about it this way because, well, Vanessa, as far as we're aware, is William Afton's daughter. So, if Vanessa is supposed to be Elizabeth, or not necessarily supposed to be Elizabeth, but like, if Vanessa is fulfilling the role of Elizabeth as the daughter of William Afton, and Michael is now the oldest son of William Afton, is there a reason to now be saying oldest? Is there a youngest? Now we're getting interesting. Where does the crying child fit into all of this? Is the crying child here? Is Garrett the crying child? There's a lot of interesting things about this. Because, before this Michael character, it was like, okay, William Afton's family is just entirely different. He has one daughter named Vanessa. It seems like maybe he's taking on the Henry role in that regards, having a daughter who maybe is a robot. We'll get into that as we discuss the movie and its possibilities. But now that we have a character named Michael who is taking care of the franchise, possibly in William's stead, did Vanessa have a brother? Is that brother Michael? And, there's so a little bit of evidence we have so far to suggest this. It's very, very loose, but, the movie's not out yet, so you take what you can get. Somebody lined up some of the lines that Freddy Carter says as Michael with some of the lines that Vanessa said. And they line up really eerily close, especially in relation to Five Nights at Freddy's, almost as if they both heard the same man talking about Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in his life, in their childhood. Almost like they had the same father. So again, it's like, is it a lock that Freddy Carter is playing Michael Afton? No. But again, it's a character named Michael who's leading people. Oh, God. This is not something I expected, to be honest. I was so sure this was like a weird copycat guy. I did not expect possibly Michael Afton to be alive and fulfilling out William's wishes. Because here's the thing. One of the biggest questions we still have to answer is why? Why is Michael leading a tour through an abandoned FNAF 2 restaurant? And, or, why is he helping those kids film whatever they're trying to film? Because I think it's very possible that the people he's leading around is that camera crew of teenagers who gets killed in the trailer. And he's the guy helping them in. But if so, he's Vincent. AKA, or I think, was Vincent, what? Did he call himself Vincent or Fritz? Neither. He called himself Dave. Where the fuck did Vincent come from? Hold on. Oh, I remember where the name came from. We're not going to talk about it. Let's just say I've been in the FNAF fandom for a long time. Anyway, I'm really tired today. In the first Silver Eyes novel, William Afton is pretending to be a security guard walking around the premises of the old Freddy's location, and it almost seems like he is trying to find it. Because in the Silver Eyes, they build a mall around the Freddy's location and basically brick it up entirely, which is weird. It's a weird concept that they just built brick around the building and then just left it inside the mall or whatever. But it almost seems like he's looking for it because when he gets in there, he's acting like he hasn't been there in a long time. It's okay, but why haven't you just gone there? You're the only person in this mall for 6 hours at a night. You could have just gone in. Regardless, once he catches them trying to sneak in, he's yeah, I can help you inside. And then he's showing them all the controls of the animatronics. He sneaks off. He puts on the Spring Bonnie suit. He kidnaps somebody. Immediately he starts doing William Afton stuff. But the idea of Michael Afton being that role is really interesting. Because what do we see in that test footage besides an older man being yeah, I can help you in the restaurant, and showing them everything as if he's just a fan who knows about this stuff. But secretly he knows more than he's letting on. So the idea of they're kind of treading that ground. where it's almost like this movie is going to be a combination of the Silver Eyes and the Twisted Ones. The idea of, somebody implicated in the Freddy Fazbear's tragedy leading people into the restaurant to, kill and or kidnap them. Meanwhile, the animatronics are leaving their building and getting closer and closer to our main characters to, I don't know, kill them, kidnap them, who can say. So, my thinking, here's my brain, here's my thinking. Michael is unaccounted for. We're meeting him now. In the Silver Eyes, the Twisted Ones and the Fourth Closet work. Because Elizabeth, or, God, I love explaining the Silver Eyes. So, the fourth Charlie bot that's also Circus Baby, that's also possessed by Elizabeth, that also has the memories of Charlotte Emily, the fourth Charlie bot comes back to town to try to find, essentially find Charlie. Man, I keep, spacing out trying to recall these specific things because I didn't have my coffee today. I'm really tired. So I was going to do this later, but now seems like a perfectly natural time to do it. As always, this channel is partnered with Gamersupps. Again, I wouldn't be working with them this long if I didn't like the product. And they are also currently releasing canned Gamersupps. It's basically 2-ish servings of the scoops if you've used the powder before. I think looking at the can, it is 125 milligrams caffeine, 69 milligrams L-theanine, which is a caffeinator as well. So be aware, if you drink it, it's basically around, doing quick math, 190-ish, basically 200 milligrams of caffeine. It's just that's their blend. So just something to keep in mind. I don't think the cans come in caffeine free, whereas the powders do. This one's my favorite can. It's the good flavor. It's their cherry slushy. I think so what is the deal with the cans? Well, 1, convenient. 2, they're carbonated. That's the big kicker. They're carbonated. I've got a soda stream. I've carbonated a few of the different flavors myself. I really want them to carbonate a couple of them. They haven't yet, but of the ones they've carbonated, by far my favorite is the cherry slushy. It makes it taste more like a slushy. They have 4 flavors out now. They sent me a bunch of cases. They're really good. As always, use code RIDETOAST for 10% off. They don't really... I always say this, this is an ad, so take everything I say like with a grain of salt, because I'm not being paid to say it, but if you use my code, I make money. Just if you're online, always keep that in mind when someone is telling you to buy something, they're probably getting paid for it. If you use my code, I get paid for it. I get a cut of the sale. So always keep that in mind when somebody's trying to sell you something. But genuinely, I've been working with Gamersupps for close to a year now? I want to say close to a year now? I would have walked away if I didn't like the product. I have a fucking cabinet dedicated to the product because they send me so much of it and I keep using it. Case in point, this was from last night. I was a little bit of a beverage goblin, and I had water, a soda, and I had this. For reference, it's 9 a.m. because I ran over here to record this before I got to editing and streaming and stuff like that. So, case in point, I didn't advertise that I had this. I just had this because I like the product. But yeah, I'm probably gonna be drinking this throughout the podcast because I'm very tired. We're out of my creamer, so I didn't have any coffee today. So this is my first caffeine of the day. So kanpai, So in the fourth closet, the robot that is Circus Baby, that was built out of the fourth Charlie bot that has her memories but is possessed by Elizabeth Afton, is sent back to where they all live to essentially look for the third Charlie bot, but also, help scout out people to use for William Afton's living forever experiments. It's kind of messy what the motive is, to be honest with you. It's one of the weaker parts of the story. But what's important to note here is that in the Silver Eyes, the series, essentially, quote unquote, Elizabeth is working for William Afton, quote unquote, right? Because again, it's Circus Baby possessed by Elizabeth with the memories of Charlie. But essentially, you could argue that Elizabeth, quote unquote, is working for William Afton. So I wonder if the choice here was that in the movie, since Vanessa, the daughter of William Afton, is already on Mike Schmidt's side and is already like with the good guys, that they need somebody else to fulfill that role. So I wonder if Michael Afton is going to be fulfilling that role. Now, here's where it gets really fucking interesting. Here's where it gets insane, and I don't know if they're actually going to go this route. I kind of hope they don't, but they could, and that's the scary bit. If Michael Afton is the supporter in FNAF 2, fulfilling that fourth Charlie Bot role from the Silver Eyes, he could be the robot. Because this story beat is now lining up really, really, really well with the Silver Eyes. So we know there's a Henry-like character. Skeet Ulrich is portraying him, you know, which is awesome that the Scream Boys are back together. You know, Skeet and Matthew Lillard. So we know there's a Henry-type character in this movie. And we know that Charlotte is the puppet in this movie. But interestingly, all the cutscenes we've seen are Charlotte trying to save her brother, a boy that, you know, her brother ? You know, a boy who's with her. So if he dies, why does she become the puppet? This is, again, lining up really interestingly with the books, because in the books, Charlie is this robot convinced her brother died at the hands of William Afton. Well, at the hands of Spring Bonnie. She doesn't know it was William Afton until much later in the story, but she has this, like, you know, she sees, like, a man wearing a suit did this. But these memories are fake. They're implanted into Charlie because she was the one who was killed. And her brother survived, and then, you know, her dad got so obsessed with bringing her back, he basically forgets he existed. And then to make her memory make more sense, he implanted a false memory of her brother dying into her mind so she could live. Which is, like, again, crazy and fucked up that he was so obsessed about bringing back his dead daughter that he created a robot of his dead daughter whose memory was his living son is dead. Insane plot detail. But again, we have these scenes of Charlie, like, holding her brother and crying and screaming for help and stuff. If she is the puppet, then she's the one who died. But she also can't be a Charlie Bot because she's the puppet. Okay, you see, like, this, like, swirl of thoughts that I'm trying to grab out of, right? You see this swirl of thoughts I'm trying to grab out of. It's so hard to put this into words. This is kind of the point of these podcasts at certain times, is that, like, it's hard to put these things into words because they're so cluttered and messy that grabbing the thoughts out of the brain cloud is sometimes difficult. It sometimes brainstorming feels like you're in those Chuck E. Cheese arcade, you know, booths where you're in a glass tube and there's dollar bills spinning around you and you have to grab them out of the air. Sometimes that's what brainstorming feels like. But, like, okay, you see the pieces in front of us. We have, again, a weird memory thing about how the girl who should be dead is the one who seems to be alive in these flashbacks. And that one of them, someone who's fulfilling the role of that dead person in the Silver Eyes, exists in this movie. Because there's a chance that this Michael is that brother. Henry's son. Now, is he a robot? I don't know. It could be that, you know, Henry's son gets kidnapped by William and then raised by him. It could be that both of them are killed. Charlie possesses the puppet. William tries to bring back, you know, Michael or whatever. Or, you know, oh God. And then there's a cursed third option where it's all of this. It's everything. Because again, in the Silver Eyes, when Henry's child dies, he makes a series of robots that are supposed to be older over time, and William takes the last robot, messes with it, and makes it his servant. So if Henry's son is killed by William Afton, there is a non-zero chance that in the movies, Henry then makes 4 Michael bots. And the 4th one, the oldest one, is taken by William and modified to be a servant to him, and is then possessed by his own dead son. Do I want that to be the plot? Fuck no. But like, you see why it's so like, there's so many alarm bells off of the fact that this strange person who seems to support William is named Michael. There's so many alarm bells going off. So I really don't know. I think what's most likely is it's just William's son. Like Vanessa is just William's son. But FNAF has done weirder before, and it's unfortunately really possible they're doing weird again. All this to say, though, movie looks great. I can't wait to see it. We have opening night tickets. We're going to be there. And I'll try to get that Easter egg video out as soon as possible, like I always try to. You know, it's funny. We've got something coming up that's really important. Like personal life wise, and I'm worried it's going to actually happen the night of the movie, because for those of you who don't know, I have the FNAF curse, where whenever something really important happens in my life, something really big happens for Five Nights at Freddy's, and I have to cram everything at the same time. Like, this is just the FNAF curse. So my first video that like ever blew up was my timeline video, and that's why I shifted all the stuff to FNAF. And, you know, that was fine. That wasn't during anything. The first video that blew up in a way that made my channel successful happened while we were on vacation. So I was just going to not make a video that week, because at the time, I was getting like less than 1,000 views on these videos. So it's like, you know, I can skip a week and just enjoy my vacation. And then I had a video recorded, I just didn't have it edited. And then day 2 of our vacation, that video blows up in a way that like propels the channel forward. And I didn't want to miss that opportunity. So I was editing on vacation like all week. And then I want to say the day after my first son was born, we were still like in the hospital. God, what announcement was this? Let me look it up to get my facts right here. Oh wait, no. That my first child was born before the YouTube channel took off. Anyway, during the like day 2 of the birth of my second child, like the day after he's born, we're in the hospital. That week was that week where we got like the FNAF movie trailer, the Ruin trailer, and the Help Wanted 2 trailer all at the same time. So like, for any of you who've never gone through the birth process as the person not giving birth, your job is the easy job, right? Like, she's giving birth. You know, like your partner is the one giving birth at that moment. You ain't at that moment. Like, they're doing the tough stuff. You're the one just there to support, right? Like, so all you got to do is make sure they're comfortable, do whatever they say they need. You know, whatever your partner says is happening, you do that because they're giving birth. And then, you know, once the child is born, those first like 24 hours after the fact, you probably should stay up the whole time, right? Because that's the they're going to be passed the fuck out resting. Let them. Your job now is to watch over the kid until they're like rested enough to do that, and then you can go sleep on the couch. Like that, you know, it's a very straightforward job. That being said, in the lead up and the after, there is a lot of downtime. You know, there's times where your partner will be sleeping in the bed, and you know you should probably rest too. But if it's in the middle of the day and you're not ready to, you know, there's downtime there. And after the fact, especially like once the baby is born, the baby's going to be sleeping off and on for the next like week and a half. So you have like these pockets where the baby is sleeping, your partner is sleeping. All right, time to work. Like so that week was essentially when the baby was asleep and my wife was asleep, I was working on those videos. Because I was like, of course, the week my kid is born is like the biggest FNAF news week in 5 years. So it was whatever. But so we joke that I've got the FNAF curse, where whenever something important happens in our lives, something important happens for Five Nights at Freddy's. This has also happened with moving. This has happened with the birth of my second child. And we have something really cool coming up really soon, like mid-December. But there is a chance it could happen earlier. And there's a part of me that is convinced it is going to happen the day the FNAF 2 movie comes out. And if so, hey, Easter egg video's gonna get delayed. That's just a fact. So we'll see. Frankly, I actually don't know how I'm going to do the Easter egg video. I don't know if it's... Let me know in the comments. Has it been confirmed that the FNAF 2 movie is going to be streaming same day again? Because the FNAF 1 movie was streaming the next day, or like the same day, essentially. And that's the only reason I was able to do the Easter egg videos, because I watched it in theaters to enjoy it, and then I went home and I watched it 2 more times for the Easter egg video. If I can't do that, I don't know how the hell I'm doing the Easter egg video. So we'll see. Okay, it hasn't been announced, so either, although trailers have said only in theaters, so there's a thinking that maybe it'll be later. So I don't know. I might not do a Easter egg video the next day, like I did with FNAF 1 movie, because like I might not be able to. We'll see. Maybe it'll just be a theory video like I did because I did an Easter egg and a theory. I maybe I'll just do that again. But it'll just be the theory. I don't know. Regardless, there's a chance that I really think that important life thing is going to happen when the movie comes out. I'll let you know if it does. Because it's one of those things where I'm not going to announce the important life thing until after it happens. I don't want to... There's like... It's a very specific thing. There's a lot of stuff in the air. And it will just be easier to wait until after everything's settled to then talk about it publicly. But it's good news. I will say, hey, it's amazing, wonderful, great news. Not going to share until after everything's over. So, that being said, we rambled for a bit there. But I think it's about time we go to questions. If you want your questions answered on the podcast, feel free to send them into Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. That is in the description to copy and paste because it's a pain to type out. Our first question comes from Ilana, they, them. What is your favorite joke or gag in the FNAF community? For me, it was Chica is Mr. Duck, or anything related to Chica looking like a duck. I still crack up when we all thought Chica was a duck and not a chicken. Very good question, Ilana. I do like that Unwithered Truth wrote a joke of that in the FNAF 2 reboot script, the whole talking back and forth with Jeremy, like, oh, it's in the name. It says right there, Chica. It's a chicken, dude. Like, I really don't understand where the duck stuff came from, because, like, look, I get it, orange beak and all, but like, she's yellow. No, they're yellow rubber ducks. Fair. Chickens even aren't yellow, are they? The chickens are like white typically. Regardless, Chica, chicken, it's right there. But no, that was a very funny bit. I will say, and this is maybe my hot take, Exotic Butters was only ever funny in the games themselves. Nearly every joke I've seen in the community about Exotic Butters gives me nothing but an eye roll. It ain't that funny. It's funny in context. The moment out of, like, just the phrase Exotic Butters ain't that funny. I don't know. I maybe this is my hot take. Maybe me being a hater. But like, I get very tired of the Exotic Butters bit. My favorite joke in the games is Helpy breaking his fucking back. The FNAF 6 minigames where if you miss, Helpy just falls on the ground and there's a crack and the music stops. That's really funny. But as far as like favorite joke or gag of the community, I might go for a nostalgia. Because I remember specifically a video after FNAF 1 came out that is near and dear to my heart because I watched it when, FNAF 1 came out. This is 11 plus years ago at this point. But it was this series of videos where they were taking the Foxy jump scare from FNAF 1 and overlaying different audio with it. And it was just like a series of bits of doing that. And I remember losing my mind back in high school about how funny I thought it was. Do I think it's the funniest joke that the FNAF community's made? Fuck no. A lot of them are like not really even funny. But that bit is still so like nostalgic for me that it's probably my favorite just for the memories associated with watching it. And it's one of those things where I remember having a lot of really distinct memories about Five Nights at Freddy's. I remember when the first game came out, we plugged my laptop into the like TV we had at the house to like be able to play it on the big screen with a bunch of my friends because it was like the big new game everyone was playing. And then when FNAF 2 came out, I was at a friend's birthday party and his younger brother and his friends were playing it on like, did it come out on a phone at the same time? I feel like it came out on mobile pretty soon after. Yeah, okay. It came out on PC November 10th and came out on mobile November 12th. Which is, by the way, hey, crazy turnaround there. But I remember they were all huddled around his phone, like dying really frequently. I was like, oh, is that the new FNAF game? And they're like, yeah, we're trying to get death mini games. I was like, what? Because this was like 3 days after the game came out. And I remember like, I was captivated. I was like, I was my big brother's friend sitting next to them. They were all like, I must have been like, God, this was 2014. So I would have been like 15, 16 years old around this point. And they were all like 12. But I'm like sitting there next to them like, and then he would like get one and I was popping off with him. I was like, yo, I remember like distinctly remember that. It came out like right as I was in the middle of high school, the early FNAF days. So like I have a lot of nostalgia for specific moments of FNAF. I always say I'm really lucky to have been in a couple fandoms at their peak or at like their hypest moments, because I got to be on the ground floor for a lot of really fun moments in a lot of fandoms. Like, I was with FNAF through and through when the Henry monologue dropped, which was like, that was a you had to be there moment. Obviously, it's an amazing monologue. You look back at it, it's so wonderful. But the moment that monologue hit the community, that week was crazy. There's other fandoms that I got to be on the ground floor for that I'm so thankful that I got to be there for. Like for Homestuck, hey, jump scare. I'm a Homestuck person, not very surprising. But I was in the fandom when Cascade dropped, and I feel like that was a really big moment. That was, I remember pulling it up on my laptop and like ignoring my phone for the entire animation, like trying to desperately watch the entirety of it, and like being captivated by everything happening at once. And it's those moments that I think I look back on fondly, where it's not necessarily being in the fandom, it's being in the fandom during specific moments, being able to share in that group excitement. That's my favorite part about fandom culture. It's like not necessarily, I think my two favorite parts about fandom culture, fan art. I just love art. I like looking at art, but it's being able to share in the excitement when something really big, like the thing happens during some franchise, and you get to immediately turn to 1,000 strangers and all get really excited together. Which is part of the reason why I'm so happy I'm caught up on Deltarune now. Because, like, I remember being able to be there for Undertale because it was just the one game. And I missed a lot of the shared hype with chapters 3 and 4 of Deltarune because I hadn't played 2, so I wasn't there for it. But now that I'm caught up, when 5 drops, I can't wait to not only for chapter 5 in general, but to be able to, now that I'm caught up and in the fandom, share in that excitement with everyone else. It's such a wonderful feeling that you can only really get in the modern age of the internet, where like we're 1,000 group chats all linked together in a game of telephone. So yeah, as far as my favorite Joker gag in the FNAF community, we love a ramble that goes around the point 17 times without ever addressing it. But as far as that, I would say probably those Foxy videos for the nostalgia. Thank you for your question, though. You're why I thought the name Vincent. Okay, it's not just my fault. It's not just my fault. It's not just my fault. Talking about fandom stuff. Sorry. Hey, I forgot. I gathered these questions 3 days ago, and I forgot what they were until now. A next question comes from Anonymous. They, them. Wouldn't it be interesting if Freddy Carter played a guard named Vincent, who intensely leads people to their deaths as some kind of copycat William? You're why the name Vincent was in my brain. It's not just my own brain rot. Haha. That'd be interesting. Again, I think if anything, he's playing a Dave role. The idea of like somebody who is either working for William or, you know, it seems like he is intentionally leading people to their deaths. The question is why. But in the fourth closet, you know, William Afton is working inside of a secret pizzeria, essentially, and kidnapping people for sister location and blah, 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 blah. So Michael could be fulfilling that role. Well, yeah, at least know he's not a guard named Vincent, because in the interview, he's named Michael. So, there you go, a question, though. Our next one comes from Kit, he, him. Although Amanda the Adventurer 3 answered a lot of questions, one thing that left me asking was, who was the Meatman? Personally, I haven't played the game yet, but you didn't bring him up in either of your Amanda 3 videos. So, who was he? Or did I just forget and they answered that question in Amanda 1 or 2? As far as I'm aware, they never directly answered it, but I think the implications is that the butcher or the Meatman is the surgeon. Essentially, the doctor who does whatever they do to turn the kids into the cartoon thing. Whether that's just sedation, whether that's opening the mind and using the mind, it's unclear. A lot of the specifics of Amanda the Adventurer are never really addressed, and I think that's mostly to its benefit. You know, it gives you the suspension of disbelief. The more they granularize the process, the less believable it becomes. But I think the implication is that the butcher or the Meatman is the person who is facilitating the process of putting these children's minds into the tape realm, whatever you want to call that. I think that makes the most sense, especially when you look at what's become of the children in those vats. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's never directly addressed. And our next question comes from Livrax, he, him. Why do FNAF content creators not use the name Dave for the crying child anymore? In my opinion, BarBADroid's video is rock solid, and I personally feel like Dave for CC is a more solid link than Cassidy for Golden Freddy is. Is it just habit? I feel like we got Dave back when the book out. I feel like if we got Dave back when the book came out, nobody would be using crying child anymore. Thank you for your question. Yeah, I think it's threefold, I would say. I think the first one is habit. We've been saying the crying child for going on like 8 years now. So we're used to saying the crying child. It's going to take time to change that. The second is I agree. I think BarBADroid's Dave theory is really ironclad. I think it's really solid. It's by far one of the best theories to come out of the security logbook. That being said, you know, none of us theorists are game theory. You know, our reach as FNAF theorists is limited. And I believe even Game Theory made a video on it, which is huge. But like, because the crying child has been the known name for going on 8 years now, that's the name the community is used to. That's the name people who don't know much about FNAF have heard. So when I say the crying child, most people, even non-FNAF fans, go, I think I know who that is. But when I say Dave, I go, who the fuck is Dave? So as the part of that is that to be accessible for content creation, saying a name like Dave, you can't really say Dave and move on. You still have to say Dave, the crying child, like Dave, comma, the crying child, to tell people this is who I'm talking about. And sometimes when you're writing a script and you're trying to keep it tight, the less words, the better. So sometimes it makes more sense to leave the name Dave out just to speed through that and say the crying child without having to explain that. Especially since, you know, and this is part 3, it is still a theory, and because of that, a lot of the times when you're introducing or mentioning theories, there's the need to elaborate. Like a video that I'm going to put out eventually, you know, I have the script written. I have a point in it where, actually, I think it's a video coming out like this week, but I have a point in it where I basically go into like a whole bunch of like, oh yes, the hallucinogenic gas in the FNAF 4 nightmare chambers that we see in Didophobia, blah, blah, blah. And then I stop and go, that was a lot. Because like, there gets to a point where if you say too many theories without explaining them, you lose people. So the hardest question, the hardest question you need to debate when making FNAF theory videos is how much do you explain and how much do you hope the audience knows? Because the way FNAF works is you could explain every word of a theory 3 layers down, because all of it is speculation built on speculation built on speculation. So at some point you need to make shortcuts. So sometimes Dave is one of those things where when I say the name Dave, sometimes I feel like you're compelled to say Dave, who, because of HyperDroid's theory in the logbook, we know is the crying child's name. That's the like best way to say that. Like the most factual way to say this is to say like, oh yes, and then Dave, or the crying child's name that was found out by HyperDroid in the security logbook in his theory, the name that we think is accurate, Dave, and then moving forward. Sometimes you gotta cut your darlings, you gotta make things tighter. And a very quick way that everybody knows is just saying the crying child. So look, if I could snap my fingers and just say everybody knows that Dave is the crying child, I'd say Dave in every video. But just not everybody knows it yet. And even the people that do, some people disagree with the theory because it is just a theory, whereas the crying child is more neutral language because it's not claiming to know what the name is. And it's just a matter of, it's still a theory, so we would have to explain it. I hope, moving forward as time goes on, more and more people start saying Dave. But not only is that the issue, but there is still the issue of just force of habit. I made a FNAF 4 video last week, and I'm sure I said the crying child way more than I said Dave, and I didn't mean to. I'm just used to saying the crying child. So that is a big part of it too. But thank you for your question. Again, if you want your questions sent on the podcast, feel free to send them into Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. It's in the description to copy and paste because it's a pain to type out. But until next time, as always, you've been watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.